Today we're going to be looking at the brand new Giro Aries. That's this helmet right here. We're also going to compare it to the older Aether as well as the more aero Eclipse, and we'll see which of the three helmets reigns supreme. Go ahead and stay with us. Giro's latest helmet, the Aries, represents the newest step forward in advancing helmet and technology design. Not to mention, this one here comes in a special blue ano matte finish, and it looks so good, especially on sunny days where you can see the sun reflecting off it, even glistening in parts. It's almost got like a speckled finish paint job. This helmet represents decades actually of helmet design, and Giro actually started out with the first modern day helmet that became lightweight, comfortable, and a little bit of aerodynamic style to design. Now, this helmet is something that was really made popular by the team 711 in the 1980s, where back then the only real Giro helmets were a molded piece of styrofoam held together by a lycra fitted net. And oftentimes people would design their helmet covers to go with their team kits. That kind of gave birth to the modern day wearing of helmets before helmets were even a requirement by the UCI. Now, helmets have come a long way since the 1980s, and this one represents a couple of key advances. The first thing being that this helmet offers the spherical technology, and if you can see in the camera, this helmet is designed to give at certain points and acts as a ball and socket joint upon impact. So the helmet does have some give between this top layer here and the base layer here. I'll do it one more time so you can see it. It also features a key retention system, straps, as well as a pretty thick area to absorb sweat on your forehead. And you can always take these out. They're held together by Velcro, and you can throw them in the wash. So how does this helmet stack up against the others? Well, there's a couple of key differences. First of all, it boasts more vents than the Eclipse. It's supposed to be lighter than the Aether, and we'll get to that. The other thing is, if you look at the design, it's really open in the front. It's never really had this big open front area before. Also making it easier to store your sunglasses when you're not using them. You can put them in right in these top two vents here. This helmet fits just like any other Giro helmet, and it is something that a lot of the pros are starting to wear now. You can see though that this helmet is still very much like the older versions of what it was, and we're going to get into those and how it stacks up. For those of you wanting a more aero design, this is the Giro Eclipse. Now, it's supposed to be slightly heavier, obviously has less vents than the Aries, and this was something that has been in use in the pro peloton, I believe, for over a year now, and it is something that you can ride obviously on the road, mountain, gravel, what have you. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, on cold days, I go with this helmet, even though maybe it doesn't psychologically offer a warmer helmet. But when you have a lot of vents as in the Aries, you definitely want to wear those on the hottest days. This, however, configures just like the other one. It has the same retention system in the back, same sort of sweat wicking absorption right here in the forehead, and it does have the spherical feature as well, where you can move that helmet, but it comes down to sort of a preference between the two on depending the type of riding you're doing. Now, with this one, it is something that it is more difficult to get those sunglass arms in there, so oftentimes you'll see people having them stick out as well. It's not super secure, so I wouldn't recommend riding at fast speeds like that. This is the Giro Aether, and it is considered to be the father or maybe uncle of the latest Aries version. It was the first of its kind to come out with the mips spherical version as well. I've had this one for quite a few seasons, and it still has that side-to-side lateral movement on it. This one has not been crashed on, but it has been used many, many times. It features more vents, obviously, than the Eclipse, and it also has the retention system in the back. One thing to note though, after a good amount of time using it, the weak point that I notice in this helmet is this retention bit right here. This is sheared off on this side, and I thought it was a freak thing. And then I looked on the other side, and it also has it as well. I know that's difficult to see, but it is sheared off on both sides. Still holds everything great. It can use a good cleaning, but these little plastic pieces are very, very thin. So if you tighten down this ratcheting system too tight, it can cause tension on this point. Other than that, this helmet is still great. It was my go-to helmet for multi-disciplines, so it is something that has been near and dear to my heart for a while, and I love the design of this helmet. Probably when it first came out, I remember realizing it has all these nice aero, smooth, almost organic features. I really like that. When it comes to Giro's top tier products, when it comes to price, this is the most expensive as it's the most premium product. This will set you back $300, and the longer it stays on the website, the cheaper it may become. Discounts may be applied when newer versions of this, perhaps different colorways, come on the market. But as for right now, this MIPS spherical Giro Aries is $300 plus tax. It's a high price to pay, but then again, how important is head protection to you? The Giro Eclipse is $250 coming down from what it was. This is a perfect example of prices trickling down when there are newer products coming on the market. You can probably find some for even cheaper than that on the used market, but as a general rule, I wouldn't get used helmets. Right now, Giro is having a sale on their Aether. It used to be the same price as the Aries at $300, but it's now discounted down to $225, which is a pretty good deal considering this has a lot of the same technology, yet pays a slight weight penalty compared to the other helmets. When it comes to weight, and weight is a big thing when it comes to helmets, is that this is boasted as Giro's lightest. At 280 grams on my scale, it tipped out, and that is pretty light for a bike helmet. Now, when you compare that to the other two, I was actually quite surprised that the Giro Eclipse also came out to 280 grams. I did it several times on my scale. It may be a different scale from what Giro uses, but I found it interesting that this helmet weighed the same as the Eclipse, which is the aero helmet. When it comes to the Aether, it was heavier at 296 grams, but again, that is older technology, a couple of years old by now, but it's still pretty light and it's not that much heavier in terms of grams. But this represents a tie with the Eclipse, but definitely something that is a lot more vented and a lot cooler in that hot weather. Now, if I had to pick just one out of these three helmets, I would probably have to go with the Aries for several reasons. Number one, I love this vented design. It's very sleek, very modern. Two, I love the colorway that it comes in. I've never really had a helmet color other than white before, but this one definitely changed my mind, especially when you see it in the sun. This fade is really something else. The third thing is, this is a year-round helmet. On colder days, I can throw a cap underneath for warmth, but in the summer, this really comes in handy, whereas if you're using the Eclipse, your heat's kind of trapped in there with less vents. The last thing is you can carry the sunglasses much easier and more securely on days when you want to take it off and give them a rest up here. Overall, I like the padding on the inside as well. It's slightly thicker to me than the Eclipse and the Aether, and then also this retention system I'll be very careful with because I don't want to damage any of the plastic that's around here. So my one suggestion for Giro is to make these plastic bits maybe a little bit stronger so that way they don't shear off, hopefully, in the future. What type of helmet do you use? I've always loved Giro, mainly because of the way they fit, and then further, the styling and the design has just exceeded my expectations over the years. I know some people are very loyal when it comes to certain brands that they choose, and when it comes to safety equipment, I tend to stick with one brand. Now, do you use a different system? Do you use a different type of helmet? Let us know in the comments. I'm curious about it, and until next time, stay Veloworthy.